All right, and the next study we're going to look at here is titled Cardiorespiratory Fitness and Long-Term Mortality. This is by Menseger et al. Back from 2018. This one just kind of popped up in my feed and I thought it was really interesting. And this study design was a retrospective cohort study involving about 122,000 patients who underwent exercise treadmill testing with a median follow-up of 8.4 years. So in English, what that means is 122,000 people did a stress test. So typically what a stress test is, they put you on a treadmill at some sort of incline and they start to increase the speed at which you're walking and make it progressively more hard. As you're doing that, that's challenging your heart. You're connected to a machine, an EKG. Essentially, you're looking at the EKG and looking for any sort of signs of ischemia or blockages, essentially is what we do. You can do for other reasons for exercise testing as well, just to see what your tolerance is. But the majority of people here will look for referred because of reasons like looking for coronary artery disease. Other people will for risk stratification. Once again, understand that the higher you have of fitness, the less risky you are in terms of a cardiovascular perspective or early death. But what they're saying here is they're looking at mostly those people who refer for cardiac reasons specifically, but 122,000 people. And what were the findings? The findings were that the cardiorespiratory fitness, it is inversely associated with all-cause mortality across all age groups and fitness levels. So not really surprising, right? We've known for a long time that the more fit you are, typically the more healthy you are. That's not what we're looking at necessarily. But what they did was actually kind of interesting as well. The elite fitness, so top 2%, provided the greatest reduction in mortality risk. So this created a hazard risk of 0.2 compared to the low performers with no observed plateau or negative impact at higher levels of fitness. And this is the big thing, right? So previously, they've always talked about it might be this U shape in terms of, hey, if you don't exercise at all, nothing's going on there. You're at a higher risk. Whereas if you start exercising, things get better. And then if you exercise too much, your risk might actually go up again. So this U shape is what they've talked about. And this study is kind of challenging that. That's the whole idea, which is kind of interesting. And they found overall that the mortality benefit from a higher fitness level was greater than traditional risk factors such as coronary artery disease, diabetes, and smoking. So let's take that again. The mortality benefit from higher fitness level was greater than traditional risk factors such as coronary artery disease, smoking, and diabetes. So what this is saying is that the more physically fit you are, it is arguably just as important as making sure you don't have diabetes, smoking, or anything like that, which is crazy. And that's one thing most people talk about. Hey, control your risk factors, right? Make sure that your blood pressure is good, that you don't have diabetes, smoking, all those things. Like, well, maybe fitness should be one of those risk factors we talk about. If you have a higher cardiorespiratory fitness, it seems to decrease your risk of heart attacks or anything like that, which is crazy. And there are also some subgroup findings, and they found that the survival advantage is even more pronounced in older patients, so patients greater than 70 years, and those with hypertension. And once again, the reiteration was there's no upper limit of benefit that was seen with increasing fitness, meaning that the more fit you get, the more benefit you got from it. We're not seeing that U-shaped curve or anything like that. And it's pretty crazy. So implications wise, clinicians should encourage patients to have a high level of fitness at all times. And it's as potent of a modifiable risk factor that we have for long-term survival, which is crazy. And so we actually may need to reconsider our physical activity goals, and particularly in older or hypertensive patients who have high blood pressure, elite fitness levels may yield substantial benefits. And my take from this is like, well, what's not new is like being fit is good for you. Like we've always known that. It was never like, oh snap, like I didn't know I should work out. No, we always knew that, obviously. But what is new is that there's possibly not that U shape, because for a long time it just didn't quite make sense. But we've seen data that, hey, when you work out a little bit, you get huge benefits, and then you kind of plateau out, and then more, it's like, oh no, do you get the risk of AFib or something like that? And it never made like intuitive sense necessarily. And this is a piece of evidence. Obviously, this isn't the whole story, but this is a piece of evidence saying, hey, like the more you work out, the better it is. Obviously, it gets to the spot of are you having yourself, are you getting injured, all those things. But it seems like the more fit you are, the better you are. And to me, it's really insane that fitness can be thought of as a risk factor, right? That's honestly a game-changing and a practice-changing thing for me. I don't think about that. I think of risk factors for someone for a cardiovascular risk score. I think about, their blood sugar, their blood pressure, and I'm looking for insulin resistance and looking for cholesterol, all these things I'm thinking about. And then, I always talk about exercise. I counsel on that all the time, but I don't necessarily think of it as a risk factor. And this kind of changed that for me. So we think about, hey, should we be including your cardiorespiratory fitness as a marker for that? And I think that's a really cool thing to think about. And we have ways to test that that's a whole different topic for a different podcast. So I thought that was very intriguing.